Hey there. So, today I'll be speaking about making play forms. I'll cover the basic workflow of a play application just so that you can sort of wrap your mind around how messages are passed or how parameters or objects are passed between states of a play form, going from the route to the application to the HTML forms that are actually rendered. Then I'll step through the components of a form. I'll do this all before actually taking you through a simple, very simple form example. So the basic workflow, which does not speak about models or objects, because we won't deal with actually containing this information within an object, but the simple workflow is you have a route file which contains all of the post, get, delete, create, all of these REST methods. And then you have the application class, which is where the delegation to the HTML and or forms occurs, or sometimes cycles back to the route, which then calls the application again. And then the forms, which are simply containers of dynamic Scala and HTML web programming. So it goes from the routes down to the application, down to either the forms or back through the routes to the application, to the forms, so on and so forth. The three main components of a form, or the three main aspects to create a form is a form object, which must be created within the application file or class, because that's where the delegation occurs. And so the only way you can actually pass this form to a Scala page is if you have it within the application class. Then there's the form function that you use within the HTML document. We'll get to that soon enough. And then to further continue, you have models or some sort of object which you then can save to the database or some sort of database structure or something that can retain information, maybe on a server or so forth. And that's where saving and deleting and other operations can occur. So let's get into it. Let's start off with a fresh play application. Let's call it G's user. Scala application. Nice. Let's take a quick peek into the G's user. You have the application folder, the configuration folder, the project folder, public. We'll first begin, as I was saying before, in the routes. So let's go there. As you can see, there's an application, a configuration file, and routes. We'll be working with routes. So all we need for this tutorial is a simple post. What this means is the form that we connect the HTML page to will allow you to post something to it, right? And when we get that post request, we'll handle it accordingly and pop up a new or render a new web page that says the person's name or whatever input they gave us. So let's create a We can actually put this up here, a post. And we can direct that to user info. The get is what we'll use in order to render the new web page that we plan to render. Nice. So now to actually implement these methods that we're calling, let's direct ourselves to the application class that I was speaking about earlier. Let's import a few methods. Actually, let's hold that off. So just for now, let's actually get this to work. We'll change this method signature just a bit. Let's change this to say login user or login Jeeves user. And now let's make the, what was it called, user info method. Not implemented yet. And the last method was user, which we'll implement soon enough. Now, because we, as you can see, we use that HTML.index, the way Scala or Play works with the web pages is they're like Scala functions. And so if we go, well, we will go to the index page, it probably and will take in a string as a parameter. So let's head over there. This entire value use index. So as you can see, it takes in a string. That's the string that we'll provide. We can rename the actual web page to Jeeves user login, or even home if you wanted to, but user login I think is fine. And so now to get started with the actual form manipulation, we need to import the helper, which will allow us to create forms, or use forms, I mean. Let's just add a bit of HTML. As you probably already know HTML, so this is nothing much. Let's say welcome Jeeves user. Please log in. And below it, we can say we'll just simply ask them to state their name. How about that? This is the function I was referring to earlier about the app form. In this, we can actually pass in we can redirect or tell the application where to go once this form is submitted. Let's direct it to, remember the post request we made called user? That's where we would direct it to. And within that, there will be input text so that he or she can put in a name. That will take a user form who has an attribute username. And then they can press the button that says login. Oops. Almost forgot to type. Submit type. Which just makes it a button. Okay, so that's pretty much it for that. Oh, so as you can see here, I set a user form. That's actually going to be our parameter. And it's of the type form string. What does that mean? That means that a form holds attributes, and each attribute must be stated explicitly. So in this case, one of the attributes is username. Actually, the only attribute is username, and username is of the type string, as we'll see when we make it inside of the application file. So let's save that and direct ourselves to back to the application. So let's make our new form. We're going to call it user form. And as I was saying before, it only takes in one parameter, which we'll say must not be empty, so it is required. In order to use these methods, we must import a couple modules. Forms and so we inputted. Yeah, so right here this signature no longer stands because we changed it to take in the form that we wanted to create, or the form that we wanted to submit. So we should change that to user form, and that is good. So let's look at that really quickly. Let's bring that up. Oops. Let's run that first. So we should see a simple text box where you can input your name. And so far, because we haven't actually implemented the user info, when we submit, it should only say to do or not yet implemented. So this takes a little bit of time. In the meanwhile, so to just continuously think about, the interaction between the routes, the application, and each form. I think that's really useful, really helpful to understanding. how easy it is to create a form. And of course, forms can become very, very intricate and complex, but this is just a quick tutorial. So it's not yet running. It's taking a while. There we go. Let's retry this. Ooh. So we need to put those in quotes. Forgot about that. Let's try reloading it now. It's taking a little while, so just be patient. There we go. So as you can see, welcome Jeeves user. Please log in, and it is a required field. Your username. And so if you actually type something, we're gonna go to do, not yet implemented. Nice. So now let's implement this. Let's go back to our user info method, which is our post. And let's handle the request. So when we're given this post, we're sort of given this form, right? And what we want to do is bind from request. So right now we automatically get the binding. And we only need just check for errors. Well, because we know that it's required, there won't be any errors. But let's check for, let's bind the username. And let's give back the OK. We'll call it user. And it should put in the user name. here. This may need to be in quotes to refer to the actual label that we have up here. And all that does is say, okay, we're going to bind the request that we get, which is a form, and we're going to map them. And if we get back a string, one string username, then we'll render this web page that we can look at right now, that we can make right now. If you wanted to reroute it, you could just redirect it. So in fact, we don't need this method right here. My mistake. But let's go make the user HTML page. So user. Let's take in a name, which will be of type string. We're going to call this web page user. And literally all we need to do, or all we will do, is display this with a really large font. Hello. I hope you are having a swell day. And that is all we will do. So let's test our little form. There's an error. Too many arguments for bind from request. I don't think that's too many arguments. Let's take a look. Should this have been equals? I'm pretty sure it's not supposed to be equals though. Yeah, that's not supposed to be equals. So we're taking the user form and we are binding it from the request. And what is the error? They're saying it's too many arguments. Just take a quick look at forms, just to check the way Bind it. Oh, and it's a fold. Okay. Yes, that makes sense because we're mapping. So we fold it and simply take the username. Now let's check. Yet there is still an error. Just 1 second. And it is equals. Just syntactical things. Not enough arguments. Oh, you have to have the has error. Oops. So you always have to check whether or not there are errors, and that was my mistake. So if it does have errors, you want to simply redirect back to html.index with the user form. Ooh. As I was saying before, I actually want you to look at this error. As I was saying before, you cannot redirect to a view. You have to redirect to the actual route. So we need to redirect to routes dot application dot index. And now we should be set. A lot of syntax errors, but I think those are very useful to actually see someone go through that. Now, hopefully you won't make the same mistakes. It's taking a little bit more time to load. It's taking a bit of time. There we go. Okay, so time to see our application work. Not yet implemented. What do you think that is? Let's go look at our routes. So in the route we have a post to the user info which we do handle. Yet it still says not yet implemented. Oh, it went to user. Did we name it user by accident? Let's check that out. We need to go to the index. And we did go to user by accident. We need to go to user info. Let's restart it all over. And last time. There we go. Hello, I'm I hope you're having a swell day. And that is all. Hopefully a lot of the mistakes will help you learn on the way and continue making your own forms. Thank you.